We humans are funny creatures, aren't we, really? We have to have a plan for everything. And I can say this to you because I've been a worse culprit probably than anybody for this. I've been the chief plan maker in my life. I've always been somebody that's had to have a plan. I've always had to plan everything out, you know. I've always had to have a plan of how I'm going to carry something out, and I've always got to be looking ahead to the next thing. And as soon as I've kind of got something under control and it's kind of, that plan's running through, I'm on to the next plan, I'm on to the next thing that's on my list, on my agenda. But it's funny really, because I suppose you kind, to a certain extent, it's not bad to have a plan. Things wouldn't get done if we didn't, I suppose. We are creators as human beings. We create things, we bring things into life, into existence, and we make changes to our environment and to the things that are in our orbit of life, if you like. Without a plan, I wouldn't have started the meditation group that I run. There's no way that I would have done things like planned festivals and events and things like that. I've had to have some sort of a plan. But, since meditating every day and getting into that sort of lifestyle, you start to realise that you don't need to be in this planning mode all of the time. And I honestly think that one of the biggest causes of suffering in our lives is, at its root, is planning and over planning. It's good to have an intention to do something. It's good to have good intentions to make things happen. But when we have expectations and when we expect things to pan out a certain way, what happens when that thing doesn't happen? We get disappointed. And disappointment leads to pain. And none of us really wants to go through pain, do we? But I think as human beings, we're unique on this planet, really, because I don't think any other creature in the animal kingdom or plant kingdom, they don't really go through life with a plan, having to plan things out, do they? Look at the trees, for instance. Every spring we start to see the amazing blossoms that come on some of the trees, like the cherry trees, the apple trees, the May trees. And I love to see that. It's fantastic to be out in nature and to be able to see things like that. And then, the blossom gives way to fruit and leaves and things like that. And in the summer time, which we're in now, we've got the full glory of all of those beautiful leaves, and the trees change shape almost. But then come autumn, of course, as we know, the leaves start to turn, they start to change colour, go yellow, orange, gold, eventually brown, and they drop off. And then the tree looks completely different. It's kind of almost like just the bare bones of the tree, and it stands there sort of naked in the field, wherever it is. But it's a cycle. Life is a cycle, and you can see in the tree the different seasons of the year. You can see the cycle of life that it goes through. Now, what if the tree were to worry and think, oh dear, I don't think there's been enough sun this year, I don't think my fruit's going to be very good, oh dear, it's getting to autumn time, all these beautiful leaves that I've grown, they're all going to drop off. Oh, what's going to happen to my poor fruit? It's just going to rot and fall off and everything. Trees don't think that way. But we as human beings seem to think that we have to be in control of absolutely everything, don't we? It's a fallacy, because actually, if you think of all the things that take place and unfold through our lives, we're probably actually only in control of a very tiny fraction of what happens to us in our lives. For most of our lives, things happen to us. They just happen to us. But I think there's a certain thing in the human psyche that makes us feel that we've got to believe that we're in control of all the things that are going on in our lives. I mean, I'm of that certain age where sort of most of my contemporaries are looking towards retiring from work and things like that, and they've got to have a plan. They've got to, their pension has got to be at this certain level, and they've got to work it all out, their options, and they've got to have this plan of what they're going to do when they retire, and where they're going to go, what they're going to buy, their homes and everything else. And it's natural, because this is the kind of thing that we've been taught through our lives. This is the kind of society that we live in, where we believe that we've got to have a plan for everything. But every time one of those little details that we put into the plan, and I've done it, for most of my life, if I've got something coming up that I'm planning, I've got literally like a 10-step plan of the different steps. This has been me for most of my life. I like to think I'm not like that so much now, but for most of my life, that's how I've been. I've had like a 10-step plan, okay? And my catchphrase going through life was always, there's always a plan B. There's always a plan B. And in one sense, that's a good way to view things, because what it means is you're not fixed with one particular outcome, with one particular way that things have to go. But it's far from really summing up the way we should be. Now, in meditation, it's great, because what meditation does is it gives us that daily opportunity to break from the lifestyle patterns that are very much man-made. They're very much constructs. They're not reality. So what I'm going to say to you is, you don't need a plan. You can just live your life. And if you're like me, and you'd always got to have a plan, a step-by-step plan that you got to work your way through, and then if something went wrong, you drove yourself mad. You had no peace, you had no joy in your life, because this plan that you had not gone the way you expected it to go. What I'd say is, why the expectations? Why do we go through life expecting things to happen, to go a certain way? We from childhood, as little children, little infants, little babies, we come into the world with no expectations whatsoever. We have no expectations. All we need to do is literally exist, to breathe, to grow, and we just trust our parents, don't we? But as we get older, we start to get onto this treadmill. You've got grown-ups saying to you, you get a little bit older, "Oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? What's your plans?" It's like, I'm 6. Why have I got to know what I've got to be when I grow up? You're 8 years old, you're 9 years old. Oh, have you got a girlfriend? Have you got a boyfriend? Do you think you'll get married? Do you think you'll have children? And it's like, hang on a minute. What? Why are we putting these expectations even on children? But we've all been there. We've all been in that situation, that circumstance whereby it's an expectation. The world, society, our parents, our teachers, our colleagues at work, our managers, whatever, they they put these expectations on us that we have got to have these goals, these aims, this path that we've got to be taking. But I want to tell you that when you start to meditate and you start to strip back your life, it's rather like sort of peeling off the layers of an onion. You know, you go so far in meditation, and then you go through these processes whereby you almost start to freak out over things, because you suddenly start to feel that the very fabric of reality is being peeled back. You start to realise that a lot of the things that you've believed and the values that you've stood for, the things you take for granted almost in life, that they're nonsense. They're not reality. You know, if I stop making my plans, and if I stop doing this thing that I do every week, every day, you know, if I don't have all of these things booked in my calendar, on my diary, whatever, the world's not going to stop turning. The sun's not going to decide it's not going to come up tomorrow. You know, you can see watch the weather forecast. They've got a rough idea because of what they can kind of see coming over the horizon, and you know, they can see higher up with satellites imagery and everything else. They've got a rough idea what's coming, but they've got no control over it whatsoever. You know, you can plan for every weather. You can take out a raincoat and an umbrella and a sun hat, sunglasses, you know, shorts and flip-flops if you want to every day, just to be on the safe side. But you've got so little control over the world. I look at the animals, I look at the birds, and I think they just go from one day to the next. They live their lives just being what they are. If you're a squirrel, you're just a squirrel. You just do it. You know, I look at dogs. They ain't got an agenda. They just get up. They wake up when they wake up. When they're tired, they go to sleep. Okay, they haven't got out and go out and hunt, most of them, for some food. If they're domesticated, then somebody brings them some food. But they're not sitting there worrying about where their next meal's going to come from. They're not sitting there worrying about their retirement, their promotion, their next foreign holiday, the insurance, the shopping, the cost of living, inflation. My God, we put so much pressure on ourselves that we don't need to. I'm not saying that you should never plan anything. I'm not saying that you shouldn't ever have desires, dreams, ambitions, because it's good to have those things, but we make them work for ourselves. And the difference is when we start to become slaves of those expectations, those plans, those structures that we build in our lives, when they start to rule us and tell us what to do, that's when we need to just take a break and say, just stop. Okay, just stop. All you need to do is just be yourself. Okay, I'm sure you've got things that are on your mind. You've got worries, you've got stresses, you've got things that you're anxious about. You've got things that you're waiting to see how they pan out. You know, you've got desires, you've got dreams, you've got all of these things. But what I'm going to tell you is that if you've got an expectation that things have got to work out in a certain way, sooner or later you're going to be disappointed. And disappointment is going to cause you pain. Why set yourself up for pain in your life when you can be happy? The happiest, most content people that I've ever met are the ones who literally they take life as it comes, one day at a time. And there's enough trouble to be going on with in one day as it is. You know, when I meditate, I visualize, if you like, this imaginary bookcase by the side of me, and I take any worries, any anxieties, any problems that are particularly bothering me, and I put them on the shelves of the imaginary bookshelf, and I just think, well, you know, I'll pop them over there. If they're important, I'll come back to them. But a lot of them, really, I should just let them go. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't got a regular meditation practice, start practicing. Start meditating every day, even if you can only manage 5 minutes. You give yourself a break, give yourself a holiday from the stress, the anxiety, the worries, the planning, the endless planning, the endless decision making. You know, the 21st century, we're given more decisions, more choices than ever. It's like the computer generation. What settings do you want to set up for yourself? You've got your phone. What's your ringtone? What's this? What's that? What are all these decisions? Well, our ancestors, they'd go in a shop and there was one type of bread, there was one type of fruit that was in season, there was, you know, things are a lot simpler. You go in a supermarket now and you're absolutely, it's mind-boggling, the choices that you get. And it's like everything is like that in the 21st century. You get in a modern car these days and you don't just turn it on and drive it. You've got to, it's like you've been asked a questionnaire of all of the, what settings do you want to set? What do you want to do? What do you want to set this to, that to, what the other to? I don't care. I just want to get in it and go where I want to go. And that's a good analogy for life. Sometimes we just need to live our lives. We just need to get up and just go. Where we're going, carry on. Get in the flow. Get in the river, the flow of life, like the trees. Just go with where life takes you. And largely, there's no need to worry or be concerned about what you're going to do next. Give yourself a break, give yourself a holiday. I remember the words of Jesus when he said, there's enough trouble for today. Don't worry about tomorrow. Just concern yourself with today. He said, you know, the birds don't worry about whether they're going to get fed or not. They just do it. You know, the flowers don't worry if the sun's going to shine on them or not. And to be honest, these are all timeless truths that we can learn to live by. So that's a bit of an antidote, if you like, for 21st century life and the way it is. But we need to be aware, and we need to be mindful, we need to be conscious of what's going on, because we can all get sucked into the vortex that is the endless round of planning, sorting things out, and then going to bed, wound up, can't sleep, worries, turning over in our heads. What am I going to do about this? How am I going to plan this? Whatever. Stop. Okay, stop. Okay. I hope this helps. Just stop and think. Next time you are determined to plan everything down to the finest detail about how much of your life and where you are today is the result of those best laid plans of mighty men, as the saying goes. Men plan, mice don't. Simple as. Okay. Take it easy. I'll speak to you next time. Namaskaram.